Time now for Off the Mic with Mike and Gasia. Just a couple people navigating the world of broadcast news in the San Francisco Bay Area. Gasia anchors in the morning, Mike anchoring at night. At one point, we actually did anchor together, and we're both raising families. I got home around 12:30 last night, Gasia, or this morning.
Yeah.
Went to bed around 2, got up at 6:45 to take my son to high school. Had 102 fever, so that didn't happen, but that's just part of life, right? Raising a
No,
family.
I'm sorry. So he gets a sick day. Is he like just sitting at home on his phone eating?
No, he's in bed right now as I'm taping this, so hopefully he won't hear me. But if he does, he's fine. But they're in the grind, and that's just part of the gig.
Yeah.
How's your
Yeah.
morning?
It's so weird. Like, you mentioned like my son is in high school back, as you know, we're marking 5 years since the COVID pandemic. You and I, you have a boy and a girl. Your firstborn, your son, is like within weeks of my second son. So like they're essentially the same age.
Yeah.
And I remember my sons were in elementary school. And I think back to the kids that they were when the pandemic shutdowns happened. And now, I mean, they're, like this close to being grown men. It's wild to think that, you have a son who's like as tall as you are.
So you mentioned the pandemic. I mean, we are in the month of March.
Yeah.
So it's officially been 5 years since you and I got tapped to basically say, hey, you got to go home. You're not going to come back, and we're going to see you on television tomorrow doing the exact same thing you were doing. Like that happened 5 years ago. And I can't believe it. I can't believe I went home. They gave me an iPhone 6.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know what we're at right now, 20, 21.
Yeah.
They gave me a microphone, a couple cables, and like a mini tripod.
Yep.
And that was it. And
Yep.
a computer with this AWS you had to log on to, and in order to get into our system, what we call iNews. But we did it, and I had a mini light, one little mini light. I had to do it in my son's room
Yeah.
because at the time, you mentioned the ages of your children. Mine were first grade, fourth grade.
Yeah.
So they were doing school downstairs. My wife was working downstairs, kind of moderating them in the morning. My mom had just beaten colon cancer and was living with us at the time. Just 2 months prior, she had surgery at UCSF. We had the dog, so I couldn't do it downstairs. Just too much going on.
Yeah.
And my wife needed the bedrooms upstairs. So that was just the only thing I could do was to be in my son's bedroom. And I don't know if you remember his Little League trophies and everything behind me, but yeah, 5 years ago that happened.
I remember people would like when I went to the store or whatever, people would say, I love Mike's room. I love to see his trophies. And most of the time I would say he's actually in his son's room. But what I liked about it is that it totally fit you, right? Like, I know it wasn't your room, but it was kind of a classic American sports themed, tidy, for sure working from home was a glimpse into our lives that viewers sort of hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
I had a little avocado pit that we had sprouted. This is a couple months before the pandemic. And, for me, I don't have a home office. My husband has a home office. And I remember they told me on a Monday that my next day, Tuesday, would be work from home. And so I went home on Monday and I was like, all right, honey, show me how to turn on the computer. And so I remember I had this list. It was a piece of paper and it had like step 1, turn on computer using the button in the back. Step 2, log in. This is your login. Like, I didn't even know he had a login for me. I didn't even know what it was. It's funny because, it's funny you mentioned that you got a computer from work to take home to use.
Yeah. I believe that's how it went down.
So for people who don't know, and I'm guessing, millions of workers did the same thing, our bosses sent a note out kind of like right when the pandemic was starting to get serious. And they're like, hey, just a survey. Tell us what you have at home, right? Do you have internet service? Do you have a computer? Do you have, kind of just like the very basics of being connected? And so I remember I wrote everything that we have, but pretty much all of that was my husband's. It was my husband's office. It was my husband's computer. He's the one who handles. I mean, I didn't know how to turn it on. And so in later months, he came to me and he goes, can I use my office for a minute? And I said, oh, no, I have to tape an interview. And then we're doing the noon newscast. And I realized, oh my gosh, I volunteered all of his stuff, all of his workspace. And so I was grateful to have it. But you know, I was like, oh wait, because remember in the beginning it was all unknown. I was like, are we going to be home for 2 weeks? Is it going to be more than a year, which is what it ended up being for me and you? But we were eager to make it work, and we were like, whatever it takes, right? You were like,
Yeah.
if I have to kick my son out, that's okay. I'll make it work. We were grateful to be able to still bring the news to viewers. Viewers were hungry to learn what was going on, but I look back, I'm like, I never thought that was going to be more than a year.
I mean, it sucked. I mean, I'll be honest. I hated it. It was hard.
Right.
And I mean, you touched on it right there, which is the most important and the one that fueled me is to do it for the viewers because
Yeah.
I think it was some of our highest viewership in the last 10 years was that particular year from March to March because there was so much news that people needed
Yeah.
at that time but just like having to wake your kid up early so you can get into his room and
Yeah.
then running cable from there all the way downstairs into our like cable area um and I think it was like halfway through I think our boss called me and said, hey, can you get rid of the trophies and turn it around. And I think I was at that point was I was just like had this much patience
Yeah.
because of all the little things going on and in home, right? You're at
Yeah.
home and you're trying to deliver serious news. And I just kind of like started throwing stuff, not
Yeah.
on television, but like, are you kidding me? This is all you care about is the background. But
Yeah.
I get it at the same time because if you think about the stories that we were talking about, um, and what was going on in Washington, D.C. We had all the riots across the nation.
George
We had,
Floyd. So,
yep,
like, did
George Floyd riots. I mean, we
and
had the
right.
wildfires. And mind you, at least at my house, I didn't have feedback. So I didn't have video. I didn't see what was on television
Yep.
for like 7 months. Like I was looking at a black screen. So I was getting cues from the producer in my ear going, video's up. This is what it looks like. This is, and
Yeah.
completely flying and playing blind for the most
Yep.
part is what it was like
Right.
without the voices in our ears saying, okay, this is what's going on. Go in
Right.
those many cues. Of course, I'm doing research. I'm looking at all the copy, and that's why I have the computer at home. But as the visual, and this is a visual medium,
Right.
broadcast news, I didn't see what viewers were seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really hard, you know, and especially I think like in, you know, in recent years, in the past 10, 15 years, we've really worked to, you know, be really clear about why we're using the video that we're using. So, you know, I've heard you
Mhm.
say things like, you know, take a look at the top left of your screen. You can see the car flying through the intersection, you know, very like kind of very hands-on. And it, you know, number one, if you can't see video, you don't know if at the moment the script says a car came flying through the intersection, you know, you don't know
Mhm.
if that happens to match the video on the screen. That was horrible. For me, what was as horrible was the fact that I couldn't see you and I couldn't be with you.
Mhm.
Meaning, you and I had worked together on mornings for several years before the pandemic happened. And I remember Eustace, I turned to this side because this is where you would sit. And I would, you know, like I when two people talk, we look at each other. Even when you were, you know, saying something directly to the camera, I'd kind of look at you, and it's intimate in that way that I can read your cues, or you know, and to have to like I was talking to a phone pretending it was Mike, and that was very hard because we were often covering very emotional topics. I mean, I think I cried like 8 times on TV that year. But, you know, we were
Yeah.
talking about people losing their family members, people losing their jobs, businesses shutting down, people lining up for food not far from my neighborhood because they couldn't afford to feed their families,
Mhm.
kids sitting in the parking lot of Taco Bell so they had, you know, internet so they could do their online learning. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm talking to my phone. And I was so used, and you and I have enjoyed a really, you know, like personal relationship in the sense that, you know, we talk about our kids and our parents and our frustrations and our successes and, you know, like this weird rash I have on my hand, you know, and there
And that's
that
part of the
person,
gig, right?
yeah,
Getting to know like that rapport,
right. But when
playing
you're
off
just
of each other.
talking to your phone, and it's funny because you know, we're doing this on Zoom and I can see you. I'm seeing you more now than I was when I was doing mornings on two in talking to my phone. So this isn't as good as the two of us being next to each other, but this is still better than what we had for so many months during the pandemic. That was what was hardest for me.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, and I remember like just physically draining too, and like the technical aspect of it, because there were times when and again, I can't even still explain it, but I don't know if it was because my wife was working also downstairs and my kids are on the computers, but there were times my computer would crash.
Yep.
There were times the phone would freeze.
Yeah.
We can't see you, Mike. And I mean, I had a short temper that time and I was throwing shit, like
Oh,
just
yeah.
pissed. Like
Yeah.
um during the fires and people would get mad. They're like, we can't see you. I'm like, well, you didn't give me enough equipment. I
Right.
don't have lights at home. Like, remember the fires and it's like, oh, can you turn your lights? I'm like, the lights are on, but it was because
Yeah.
the smoke
Yep.
had covered the sun so much they couldn't even tell that I was, nope, the lights are on. I don't know what else to tell you, man.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
couldn't turn on the air conditioning. That I don't have it now, but at that house we had it because it was an old one and made noise. And so it got so hot
Yeah.
upstairs in the house. Like people didn't know I was like sweating underneath this. Did I even wear a jacket? I forget if I wore a jacket. I think I did.
You wore a jacket, but you didn't wear a tie.
Yeah. So even with like shorts and a jacket, it was like, oh my God, it was just like melting it. Like not every day,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
But I think
No,
the
but that,
physical aspect was hard. And I just, like you said, we want to do this job, you want to do it 100%.
yes.
And I feel like I was doing 95. And
Yeah.
it drains you physically and mentally when you're like, I can't hit 100 because I
Yes.
don't have the tools to hit it. And
Right.
that's what pissed me off a lot too. And then,
Yeah. I
but there
feel
were
like
positives. I mean, there were positives. I mean, being at home with your family, right? I mean, you loved being home with your family
yeah.
every day and cooking. I mean, you look at this. I thought about this the other night. This T-shirt. I don't know if you can see it.
What is this?
Um,
Cheers. Oh, the
Cheers,
bar.
one of the
Yeah.
greatest sitcoms of all time. And so my wife brought it home the other night on Sunday because she had work in Boston,
Oh,
and I had to take I work Sunday nights, but I had to take it off because she was working. So when she came home and we had a dinner at the dinner table and she gave me the shirt and it just reminded me because I don't have family dinners like anymore really at
yeah.
home working nights because I work
I
nights now.
know.
So that's not part of my life anymore. But I really did appreciate because I was working mornings during the pandemic. I did appreciate having dinner at home at a table with the five of us every night.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's like when I think about your night side shift and my morning shift. For me, like mornings is, really hard. You're waking up in the middle of the night. I'm always sleep deprived. I'm super cranky past like 7 p.m., right? All that stuff. But at least I get to have family dinner at home. But let me assure you, Mike, that family dinner at home isn't always the storybook, presentation that you imagine it might be. Like, my son, I mean, right? They've had a long day at school and kind of everyone's starting to fall apart. And sometimes my older one will say, like, can I get up from the table? He's like, he wants to be on his bike all the time. He's got a little bike trainer thing he uses in the garage. And I look at him and I say, look, I want you to sit with us. I know you're done eating. I know you're probably not interested in talking about whatever, your little brother's baseball game. But this is the only time we're together, the four of us as a family, all day long. This is my 20 minutes. Like, don't rob me of 7 of those minutes. So I often, yeah, I force them to stay, but I tell myself, this is my reward for waking up in the middle of the night and working all day and la la la. So, but like, don't think you're missing, like what you used to see on the Brady Bunch of like everyone's happy, pass the mashed potatoes. This is delicious, mom. Like I never
No,
hear
that's true.
this is
That's
delicious,
true.
mom. So, like, if you're ever sad, like, just FaceTime me and I'll show you what like dinner in the Mikaelian household is like. But can I just add,
Yeah.
you like if at the beginning when you said that the pandemic was really hard for you and working from home was hard for you, and for sure you had a dynamic different than what I had. You had your beloved mom was living with you. You had the dog. Your wife works full time. Your children. Your daughter is younger. My boys were in fourth and fifth grade, and at that point, my husband and I sort of figured, look, they were on track before the pandemic. So like they were already doing okay academically. As soon as the pandemic hit and they received laptops to do like distance learning, all they did was watch YouTube. They
Mm.
watched mountain biking fails, baseball fails. I mean, all like how to smoke a brisket, like random stuff. And at first I was really distressed, but like they're not doing their schoolwork and they're not da da da. And then I realized, but you know what? They're happy. Like their little inner spirits, for the most part, were okay. And I'm sure you remember really quickly the conversation talked to mental health and how
Hmm.
some people truly were depressed and truly were anxious, and children had a hard time and adults had a hard time. And so I kind of told myself, look, maybe they're not going to be rocket scientists, but at least they're happy. Like I'll knock on this fake wood, at least they're physically healthy. And so I did all that I could to to maintain, like to keep their bounce going. And, you mentioned like family dinners, a lot of that was food. I remember there were days when as soon as I'd sign off from that noon show, it'd be like, 1:30, 1:15, and I'd walk into the dining room where they were, watching YouTube / doing distance learning, and I'd be like, who's hungry? Who, like, tell me what you want. And they would throw out, like, I want a chocolate cake. Let's have breakfast burritos. Random stuff like project baking would start at 1:30 in the afternoon. And all I did was cook and all they did was eat. And I felt so good that I could do it. I felt, oh my gosh, I have a job that allows me to buy bread and eggs and butter and milk to turn into a cake that my sons will then eat at 4 o'clock on a random Tuesday, and we will just all be happy together. So I look back on that year plus as really difficult, but also some of the best time we had as a family. And thankfully, they didn't hate us yet. They were like full-fledged teenagers. Like I said, fourth and fifth grade, they're still kind of sweet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
I mean,
really
we
sorry
were
to
lucky
hear.
enough. We had a good school at the time, and I think they got their work done. And
Oh,
I
good.
think we did it in a way that we bounced off of each other, my wife and I. And I would go down and help, and then she could focus on work. And but it was a balance. We knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but the one advantage of working mornings, I feel, um, really at least, is taking advantage of being outside during that time with the young children, and
Oh yeah,
grabbing our bikes and going to the park and going on hikes. And there was a lot of outside time
yeah,
after like you sign off on the noon.
yeah,
So from like 2 o'clock basically till sundown, like that was our life, like a lot of people. But
yeah.
if I was working this shift now, I'm not doing that.
Right.
So I'm very grateful that I was working
Yeah.
mornings at that time. But I will remember this one. What's the stream that Fox does 24/7? What's it called? I
Like
should
Fox
know this.
Local or Live Now?
Live
Like,
Now.
yeah, Live
Remember
Now
you and
on the
I
Fox
started
Local app.
that? Didn't you start? We started
Yeah.
that
Because I think back then, wasn't it
before we
called,
went home. I'm talking about before we went home.
yeah, we were here. And it
Yeah,
was
we were
called like,
here, and
it was
that's when the
called
cruise ship,
Coronavirus Now or something.
like
Yeah.
the cruise ship was out, and they had this idea. The company had this idea of just people, like you saw, people were just craving information. So let's give it to them 24/7, and we launched it. So once we signed off at 10 a.m., we rotated every other day,
Yep.
and you and I would do this 2 hour live nonstop broadcast that was a stream.
Right.
It was everywhere.
Right.
And I remember getting emails from people in like Chicago and the East Coast and going, because we only did it for, I forget, like a month, maybe
Yeah.
3 weeks. And
Yeah.
they're like, where did you go? We liked you, or we liked the program. Like, what? I'm like, oh, I have no idea. I mean, they just told me no more. We're
Yeah.
done. But well,
Yeah.
we gave it to someone else, but we're going to stick with the program. But
Yeah.
I remember that we would sign off, and then
Yeah.
we'd have to like, that was a
Yeah.
lot. That was a
That
lot.
that was wild because up until then, the interviews that you and I would do mostly on Mornings on Two were, like I would know at least, maybe a day ahead of time that I'm going to interview the mayor. I have 5 minutes, and like I'd do a ton of research. I would craft my questions. I would say, okay, well, the mayor's probably going to say this, so I better be ready with that. Like everything was very heavily researched, and time was always very tight in our newscasts.
Oh
But
man.
once you open up the stream, I remember because we would do it like literally, we would sign off. Okay, thanks for joining us on the 9, blah, blah, blah. It's 10 o'clock, right? You would pop up on that stream at like 10:05, and we would go until 11:50, only taking a break at 11:50 so that we could go upstairs to
Yeah,
start the new newscast. And it would
that
be
was
like,
crazy.
I'd be getting like slips of paper. Oh, you're interviewing Dr. So and so about hand washing. Okay, you're going to interview such and such financial expert about why the cost of groceries is tanking. And I was like, yeah, it was a lot of like on the fly thinking, and it was a lot of like, yeah, let's talk for 12 minutes about why people are hoarding toilet paper, right? Like imagine a 12-minute interview now in a newscast. It would never happen.
Oh my God. I mean, just talking about this, I should sit down and just write the movie script,
Yeah,
about doing broadcast news from home.
yeah,
It
it was
was,
wild.
it was a different time. So I know you got to go because you are
Oh,
taping an
I
episode of Like It or Not.
I am. Can I ask you really quick because
Yeah.
I've asked the producer of Like It or Not to tell me when everyone is here, and they're not here yet. I have to highlight the viewer emails that we got, and I know you
Hmm.
got them too. Like people would write to me,
Hmm.
and they would say, "We appreciate your," meaning Mornings on Two, your being here for us. People would say, I haven't seen my kids in several months. I haven't been able to travel to see my parents. You know, my work sent me home unexpectedly. I live by myself. I have no human contact but for you guys. And to hear our viewers respond to much more than, you know, these numbers and this stat and this change in policy, like it was so personal. And people were telling me their personal stories about loss or about missing family members or craving human connection. And it wasn't, and we've been doing this a long time, right? It wasn't until the pandemic that I realized that human connection is as valuable as getting the facts right, spelling the official's name correctly, making sure our grammar is, because I used to be so focused on like journalism ethics, journalism law, accuracy, breaking news, getting the best possible expert to speak on the tariffs. But during the pandemic, I was like, wow, people really do turn to us every day. Just like it's not quite a hangout, but it's more than just the news. So that will forever stay. I'm going to be like 95 years old and in the home and still remembering what a lot of our viewers wrote to us.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And I thank them for that because,
Yeah.
like I said, there were a lot of difficult days doing that job. And those comments, like I mentioned, they were the fuel that drove at least this
Yeah.
particular engine in my body to get up and do that gig during that year and up to today. I mean, let's be honest, that's to tell those stories. I've always done it for the viewer. That's why we got into this business in the first place. And that year definitely drove it home. That's what we do for a living, and people watch and people listen and people care. So it's important. So have a good show out there, like it or not.
Yeah, I like it. Can I tell you, like, I joke that this is the highlight of my week, but it really is.
Taping like it or not.
No, you talking to you. I miss you. I miss having you on mornings. I love seeing you. I was streaming you. I was washing dishes during your 6 o'clock newscast, and I was like, oh, look at, here I am scrubbing the lasagna off the casserole pan, and you were like in your suit telling us the news. And I guess you know what? I didn't even realize. I guess I am using our newscasts to see you the same way some of our viewers used our newscast, especially during the pandemic, to have that human connection.
It's my honor. It's my honor, Gasia. Maybe I'll set my alarm tomorrow and get up early and watch the show. But usually I'm
Oh,
sleeping through the morning show
I
these
hear
days.
you.
But
I hear you.
I am off on Friday, so maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. So,
Okay. All right,
all
sunshine.
right. Good to
See
see you, my friend. Thank you for listening, everybody. And as my good friend once said, once in a while you get shown the light in the strangest of places if you look at it right. See you around.